Hello there, welcome back to the channel. This is where we stopped at the last tutorial. We looked at tags, we looked at the paragraph tag, the heading tag, the h1 tag, and we looked at other tags like that. We looked at the concept of nesting. We know that to open a tag, we simply use the angle brackets, and when we want to close it, you can see the difference being highlighted here. We have to close it with a forward slash after the first angle bracket or less than sign. Okay, that being said, we also looked at links, but today we are going to talk about an essential aspect of web design, HTML forms. Whether you are building a simple contact form or a complex user registration system, understanding HTML form is crucial, so let's get started. So to get started, we need to create a new file. To create a new file, you could click on this icon here. So I'm clicking on that and just call it form.html. Now we go ahead and do our typing out again. So let's have, you could just get started actually. So write the first two elements and declare doc type, and then you see my solution in a while. So I'm going to type it out. So the body, in the body tag, we want to write out the form element. So let's just write it out, form. Now the form element, HTML forms are basically interactive sections of web pages that allow users to input data and submit it to a server for processing. They are used for various purposes such as collecting user information, conducting surveys, and facilitating online transactions. So I guess when you started using Facebook, before you register, you have to input your details into a particular form where you have the input bar, you have the labels for the input, and then you also have the submit button. So this is all about forms, and those input bars are actually elements of the form. So there are elements that are specific to the form. It's just like the UL or the OL tag, which is the unordered list or ordered list tag. The LI tag belongs there and doesn't belong anywhere else. So there are elements that belong to the form elements that do not really belong somewhere else. So in the form element, we will have an input. Let us create a sign up form here and try to use most of the inputs, most of the elements we will need. So I would use inputs for this tutorial and probably show you other things you might need. So let's start with the inputs. But first of all, for each input, we might want to label it so that the user know what each input stands for. So for that, we want to wrap it in a div. I know I've not mentioned the div before, but divs are useful to keep things together. So we want to wrap each input in a div. So here we will have a label. So for name, username. So if your username. Okay, to make this more readable, I would like to kind of close this tab where you have the files. So to do that, I'll do Control B. So now we can have everything showing very well. And then go in our input, we want it to be of type text. So we expect text from the user when they're typing into this input. So we might need to have this again. So I'll just copy it and paste it because I'm lazy like that. And then make changes. So label for username. So we need to have another label for phone number. then phone number. This will be of type tel. So that says it's a telephone number. So I should still copy this. To do that, to do what I just did, you use Alt Shift and then down key, arrow down. That makes it to duplicate the thing you've highlighted down. If you click up, that would duplicate it on top above the thing you highlighted. So Alt Shift down, Up Shift up. We'll need a password. So we call this, give this a type of password. Well, if you notice, we have a 4 attribute here, and this is not the first time I'm talking about attributes, but it might be useful to kind of refresh on it. Attributes are things you write in the opening tag that gives more information to the tag you're writing or allows the tag to do certain things. So the 4 attribute specifies that this is for the input, which is the username. But then to connect the label with the input tag, we need to give it an ID of username. So by this, it knows that, oh, this input belongs to this label, and this label knows that, oh, I have something to do with this input. And we do the same for the phone number input. I'm not comfortable with the dash, so I'm going to just put phone, then capital letter, number, so ID, phone number. Then for the password, we also do the same thing, ID, password. So having done this, you can see some of the tags that belongs to the form. The div tag doesn't belong here, but do not get too bothered about that. Just know that we want to keep things nice and controlled, so we wrap things in the div. The div is a wrapper that you use to like keep things intact. So we want each level and each input to belong to one place and one place alone. So when we are done with this, we probably need a way to submit. We have the input tag that allows for submit, but in this case, I'm going to introduce it to something else. But before I introduce you to something else, I need to view this on the browser. To view this on the browser, remember to Ctrl S to save. Then from there, we can move on. Let's access the folder. Just go to desktop, go to web dev. That's where we saved it to. If you saved it to another file location, you might need to go there manually. Then click on the one called form. Of course, that's the name we gave it here. So if I do Ctrl V, you can see form. So I'm going to go back to it, form, and I think I have it open twice. I'm going to close that. Now you could basically see, so for each, this is the username belonging to this guy and the phone number belonging to this guy. And I think I have phone number twice. That's a mistake. We're supposed to call it password. So that being done, we have the submit input, which is being formatted differently. So for every other input, you see the way it's been formatted. Yes. So basically that's it. And let's see how this is different. For the one we get text. So the username was given the attribute text, as you can see here. Let's go back. Let's type in some text. So text is anything, number, asterisk, special characters, numbers, text, alphabet, anything. So let's write it out. You see? So it can accept David 123 as a username. That's okay. Now let's see if you can also type text into the phone number. Well, it does type text, but I didn't expect that. Oh well. Okay, I think we have to refresh since we made changes. And let's save this. So, text, the phone number. Wow. Then let's just write our phone number using the punch code. And then password. Now the password I expect it to be formatted differently. So let's give this a real name first, David123. And let's say that our password is basically anything that I'm going to type in here. So it's formatted differently not to allow for anyone eavesdropping to see. And the submit input is formatted differently. Well, you could use the input like this, input and the type submit. But I'm not really sure of people who use input with the type submit. So it would be best practice to show you what most people use. But it's not a problem if you use the input and the type submit. You could just say button, and then you say that the button is of type submit, and then you could say sign in. You may ask, how would I have given sign in this text? How would I have given it a text in the input, the previous one? So I'm going to do Control Z, and then I'm going to just give this a value of sign in. So let's save that and see if we have it on the browser. So we have it on the browser. But then I'm okay with my previous, I'm okay with the button. Type, submit. Here's something to note actually. If you do not have any other button on this form, the only button you have would be of type submit and would actually act as a submit. So even if you didn't put a submit and it was one button, that would act like a submit. So let's say sign in. So we've signed in. That being said, I think you must have gotten a few things: the labels, the input, the label, input, types in input, and the for in label, how it's being connected by the ID. For and ID makes the connection between a label and an input. And then I should show you some other kind of form elements. So let's look at the select element. So let's still wrap it in the div. So we say select. Let's give this a name of country. Let's give it an ID of country. And yeah, let's in the select has elements that are called options. So if you want someone to select from an array of things, you need to give them option. So this is option, and we give it a value of, let's say, Nigeria, because yeah, Nigeria. You could choose to call this anything. The most important thing is that when you're writing an option, you should assign it a value. So that way, if you're collecting the data, it's going to return the value. It's not going to return what it's, yeah. And you might ask, how about the inputs? Don't they have values? Yes, they have values when you actually type things in. So when you submit the form, the values of the inputs are things you've typed in. Well, you could also automatically assign values to input without having them been typed in, but that would be very bad because you actually need the users to type something in, then that is taken as a value. But for the options, you give them value already because all the user has to do is to select from one of those options. So let's give this option name Nigeria. and then copy down, Alt Shift, then down. Let's call this Kenya. Let's get Kenya. And then let's view it on the browser, Control S to save, and then let's refresh. So you see from here you could select a country. Well, we forgot to give it a label, so let's label this for country. Let's say select. Let's say where are you from? Control save, and then let's hit refresh. Where are you from? After having selected, we might need to choose between two things that are not independent, they are dependent. So we cannot be both. We cannot be both male and female. So let's say gender. So we still wrap it in a div, and then we give it a span, choose gender or gender, just gender. What is your gender? Now, there's a divided community on this. I mean, there are a lot of people talking about genders now, but let's talk about only two, male and female. So to wrap that, we need to wrap both the label and the input for the male and in a div and separately from the one for the female. So let's put this div label for gender, and then let's say male, and then let's give this an input of type. To just specify type, you use the column, and then you write out the type, radio. So for the radio, we give it a name of gender and an ID of male. And then for the female, we say label. Just go ahead and write it. Gender, female, and an input with the type radio, and then gender, ID female, remember our connection. Gender, gender, and then let's give this a value of female and a value of male. So you see where the value is necessary. For this kind of input, we do not really have any place to input anything, so we need to specify the value so that when we are submitting the data, it automatically knows that the form automatically knows that this input has the value of female or male. And then there's a reason for some of the things we did here. Notice we have a for with the name of gender and ID of gender. Now, if we save this and go to the browser, we should be able to see why we did that. So let me click on this and this. Now, see how clicking on one of these unselect the other one. Now, it's useful for in this kind of case because we do not want our users to click on two things at once or to have two genders, male and female. So we do not. So if we didn't do this, let's take them out. It should now be possible I guess. Okay, it is, let's say. Okay, so if we didn't do that, it's now possible for us to select two, and this is bad practice. So we definitely need to make connections that allows it only to save one and have value for one. So we looked at the radio button, so the round stuff with a round stuff inside is a radio button. Now that's important. You might see something like a checkbox, but there's no big difference between a checkbox and a radio button. We also have other input elements. I would advise that you, after learning each of this series or each of this video, go online and make your research. Not all the tags are available even to me. I do not know all the tags, but for necessity's sake, I might need to check them up on the internet. So that being said, we've covered a lot of tags under the form element, and you might want to see how this works, how we send information, but at this particular moment, it might not be that useful. So I want you to know these tags and know them very well. And then later on, we are going to look at some of the other methods we can use with the form, how we can send data, and that will be in tomorrow's video because I do not want this to be overwhelming. So you could try to recall some of these, the labels, how to use it, how to make sure that your radio button selects only one if necessary, how to ensure that how to keep your code consistent by using labels, and also how to keep your code consistent by using divs to wrap your labels and input. If that being said for today, we have another video tomorrow where I'll show you how to send data from the form to to the back end, how to send data from the form to some URL, how that is being done from the HTML. So do not worry, this is not quite as beautiful as the ones you see. That's because we are here to do CSS. But just know this for now. Know the different types, explore, check, research, and then probably you could build something with it. So build a simple form for yourself, and let me see you in tomorrow's video. Thanks for watching.